Hey, I'm Ben Fileccia with the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, here with Lisa Hurwitz doing another episode of our Short Takes. Lisa, we met about 5 years ago, I think, now in Philadelphia when she was shooting her documentary, The Automat. The Automat chronicles the rise and fall of Horn Hardart's restaurant's empire in Philadelphia and New York. And Lisa and the film were recently written about in an article from Forbes. And the article described the movie as the most culturally relevant film for post-pandemic America, which is a pretty big title right there.
And I've heard that sometimes the people who write the headlines aren't the same people who write the articles, a different department.
Perhaps. But thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, and have to thank Ben for helping find a location for us to film at in Philadelphia, because I really wanted to film in a restaurant, and we had a couple of Philadelphia bigwigs that needed a really nice backdrop behind them, and at the time Ben was general manager of a restaurant group, and so he offered up one of his restaurants for us. So thank you, Ben.
Yeah, it was a fun day. Matter of fact, just maybe a week or so ago, on my Facebook memories, pictures of you talking to Ed Rendell and Mayor Good, and some other famous Philadelphians popped up on my timeline, and it was definitely a good memory. So right off the bat, why do you think Forbes said that this film is the most culturally relevant post-pandemic?
For me, as you know, the core of the story is about people coming together and businesses providing the public something healthy and positive and good for them. And that's what Horn Hardart was all about. And so as we're coming out of this, I'd like to see more of that. And I definitely would love to see communal tables continue to make a comeback, which is something that was making a comeback before all this. And I really hope we can get back on that bandwagon, because I think that is such a really important dining trend that's it's not just fun for people, but I think it's really good for people too, to sit, elbow to elbow with strangers. And that is, for me, more than the little glass cubbies and the automation, which is an important part of the Automat story. Really at the heart of it is about people being with each other and interacting socially.
For the people that don't know, could you tell some people what an Automat is? Like, I'm familiar. I mean, I'd never been to one, but I had heard stories about automats, and as you know, my father worked for Horn Hardart through high school. But could you tell everybody what an Automat is?
So an Automat is a restaurant concept that was very popular for a time. It became less popular. According to some people, it may be making a comeback now, especially post-pandemic. But what it is essentially is an automated restaurant experience where you take your food out of a machine, and it's sort of a waiterless restaurant concept. And it really was pioneered by Horn Hardart, which was founded in Philadelphia by two gentlemen in the late 1800s. There were other Automat companies around the United States, but Horn Hardart is really the name that took off and left a real legacy, not just for automatic restaurants, but in terms of teaching restaurants how to produce food en masse and to duplicate the same experience in multiple locations. So they were a really important lesson for also restaurant chains. But in Philadelphia, interestingly, the Automat concept was less popular than at Horn Hardart's New York City locations. So Philadelphians will really remember Horn Hardart for their restaurants. You sort of have to be of a certain generation to be a Philadelphian and remember the the Automats that were in Philadelphia. But the Automats proliferated in New York City, and it's possible that maybe Philadelphians who went to New York City on, vacation might have gotten to eat there too. But I'm sure that there's definitely quite a few Philadelphians that remember going to Automats in Philadelphia.
That's very cool. Now, in your documentary, you interviewed some really cool people, not just the people I saw, Philly folks, but I know you quite topical right now. I know you interviewed Colin Powell, and I know you interviewed Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Mel Brooks and Elliot Gould, and so many really cool people. Now, was there a common theme among all these folks that brought them back to Horn Hardart, or a reason they loved it? Or can you tell me perhaps one or two things from, if you remember, one or two things from any of those folks about why they loved it?
So I think that for all of them, it really brought back memories of this time in their lives that were more simple. They went there, Ruth Bader Ginsburg went there alone, but Colin Powell and Mel Brooks both went there with their families. So I think for the two of them, it was really associated with loved ones who are no longer with them, and also for just the marvel of the experience, because they both were low income young kids in New York City, and going to the Automat meant going somewhere. It was like the most exciting part of their week, and they were able to do it themselves. Mel's brother would give him a nickel, and Mel could just help himself to all the pies and everything else that he loved. For Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think that she was gracious enough to be in the film, and for her, I think it wasn't so much that the Automat was such an important place for her in her life, but she recognized this was an important place for America, and the Horn Hardart is an important lesson to remember, and she was an eyewitness to that. It was a place where she could go and enjoy the quiet and work on her homework, and a place where she really observed mixing of all different kinds of people at a very young age when she was going there. So she spoke to the fact that the food was really excellent food. It was really delicious, and that was available to all kinds of people. And so one important part of Horn Hardart's legacy was that it was a place that made excellence available to everybody at a very affordable price, which is something that I really hope that, I'm not saying let's not have fine dining, let's have fine dining, but let's also have an option for people where there's nice options that are good for you and affordable.
Do you have any timeline for a full release yet, or?
I don't yet, but we're so close, and we are going to get this finished. Hopefully people can start seeing it. Definitely, I think within the next 8 months.
Hey, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I really
pleasure.
appreciate the time. Yeah. Well, listen, go back to your day or your morning, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you need anything from me, please reach out. Okay. I'm always just a text away.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.